Hello and welcome to Vox Markets. I'm John Hewman and I'm joined today by Tim Jones, Global Head of Research and Insights at Mirriad Advertising, and Sparsh Pandya, Client Director of Media Insights at Research Group Kantar. How are you doing, guys?
Good morning. Very well, thank you.
Excellent. Why don't you just introduce yourself before we look at the research that we're going to talk about in a minute? Tim, let's start with you.
Yeah, so Tim Jones, I head up the Global Research and Insight function at Mirriad. I spent a long time in the advertising and media industry, working from advertising agencies, TV stations, technology companies, before joining Mirriad about 4 years ago.
Excellent. And Sparsh, over to you.
Hello, lovely to see you guys. Yeah, I'm Sparsh. I work as a director here in the Insights division of Kantar, particularly focusing on media effectiveness measurement. And this is sort of a side of the industry I've got all my background in. So always been working at media value measurement functions and global investment teams. And over the last 2.5 years, have worked closely with Tim and the folks at Mirriad to build out this gold standard research framework that we have in place to measure in-content advertising and this exciting proposition they have in the media landscape. So really excited to discuss.
I mean, it's a really interesting piece of research. I've had the chance to read it, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. It's really focusing on the effectiveness of virtual in-content advertising. But before we look at the findings of the research, perhaps Tim, you could talk us through what we mean by in-content advertising and what Mirriad actually does in this space.
Well, Mirriad is really a new advertising solution for the industry, which places brand opportunities inside the content itself. And it does that through computer learning and AI technology as a post-production process. So we're actually looking at putting brands into content after the content's been made. And that transforms the opportunity from what you might call historic product placement, which was a long-term opportunity where you were buying yourself your brand's opportunity into content that hadn't been made. You had no idea often what the distribution was or even when it was going to air. And turning it around into the post-production process allows very short time frames. It allows you to schedule campaigns across all forms of content. And I think really importantly, it allows you to then turn that into more of a media buy and align and schedule that opportunity with other formats such as TV spots.
Okay. So before we look at the findings, what were you attempting to find out with this research, Tim?
Well, coming back to that becoming more of a mainstream media buy, the media industry has obviously a long history of measurement of performance of advertising. And one thing marketers want to know is, what is the value they're getting from their media placements in the outcomes of that. So what we need to do now with these new in-content opportunities to prove the value people get from the advertising. So when you go mainstream into the advertising markets, you need to prove that you're giving that the brands are getting the value and the performance that they would expect to get in not only in the investment they make with us, but also the comparative value and investment compared to the other formats. So if people are moving budgets, say they're moving a certain amount of proportion of a budget from a TV spot campaign into content, what's the outcome of that? What's the balance of that investment, and what is the value of that investment?
So this research is essentially proving that effectiveness, that the value of in-content advertising. Sparsh, you mentioned that you've been working with Mirriad for some time, and I guess this research is the culmination of all that work that you've done. Perhaps tell us about that, the history of the work you've done there, and the methodology that's led to the findings in this report.
Absolutely, and actually just touching on what Tim kind of was speaking there right at the end about needing to prove the value of whatever investment that an advertiser may be making. That's really where we step in, and that's where we had to devise an entire kind of custom solution to be able to fit into what their offering is within the marketplace. So we already have established methods of measurement across different media channels, across a multi-channel plan, as well as kind of in-depth expertise in digital placements, these kind of things. But when it comes to in-content, we had to reimagine how we set this methodology up. And so what we did is we devised a weekly survey, which we would update to measure particular episodes from a TV show that Mirriad had inserted in over a period of 20+ weeks. That survey was to really refine and make sure that we captured people who had seen this content in real life, thereby avoiding contamination through biases and this kind of thing within our representative sample. And we really wanted to be clear that all of the voices and all of the kind of findings on this that were represented with this research was as close to the real life exposure that could be driven. And so through doing that, what we've actually found is really remarkable results across the brand equity funnel. So everything that an advertiser might want to drive from an awareness perspective, kind of driving positive perceptions and feelings about your brand, as well as prompting consideration and action from a consumer, are driven positively through these Mirriad integrations and placements. And we're recording, double-digit increases when compared to a control group in things like brand awareness, ad awareness, as well as close to double-digit rises in consideration as well. So that was really kind of the first remarkable finding. And then just briefly to go on in terms of the key findings that have come out of this research from our perspective, and it is a frontier, and as researchers and as kind of market leaders in that kind of research-based consultancy, we're always trying to keep an eye out to the frontiers, right? And Mirriad is by definition a frontier within the industry that we're really proud to kind of develop a way to measure. So a couple of other things, we took those initial positives and then we started to see, okay, how do we compare this within the media landscape at large, and in particular with linear TV spots, the traditional advertising that you would see in an ad break on TV. And our findings have also shown an amplifying or a multiplying effect to those linear TV performances when there's also an in-content integration within a TV show. So that's really kind of the gold that we've uncovered, and really positive sign to see, and something to build confidence in brands who want to make this kind of different investment within their media mix. And then lastly, our research paper kind of brings to light a whole host of creative best practices and gold standards that in-content advertising should follow. So we've unpicked the differences between putting a physical product in a scene or there being a sign in the scene. And we found that there's different areas of the consumer purchase funnel that can drive, where individual physical products can imply usage with your favorite characters, can build affinity for your brand, indicating towards lower funnel lifts, so things like consideration. Whereas signage is a really good awareness driver. You can see a logo of a brand, you can see perhaps a slogan, and thus it indicates towards more of an awareness-driven upper funnel function.
So like an ad within an ad, basically.
Yeah,
an ad within a
so a
program,
billboard on a street, while this character is walking through a regular scene in a show. So it's quite interesting. And just to I'll just drop one example where we tested a car company, and we tested both a signage placement where it was on the street, the logo of the car, the name, and then a little message, and then a scene where the car itself was placed in. And in fact, the sign performed much better because people could pick out what company it was from, what brand it was from, rather than the physical product in that case, where it could have been any other car, from a distance. So each has its unique benefits and things like that. And there's some remarkable kind of extra miles we've gone with that as well, where we've also tested things like two products in one scene together, and we found some really interesting insights there as well. So from our perspective, briefly, even though I've gone on for quite a while now, I think it's really exciting to have been part of this cutting edge area and certainly an area where our industry is going. Just thinking from a technological perspective, I mean, AI or intelligently driven solutions now are becoming more and more part of any brand's outlook. And that's what we've been really excited to map and kind of walk alongside.
No, it sounds absolutely fascinating. I guess that would be music to the ears of advertisers and obviously the companies that are selling the inventory. But I think you also looked at consumer perceptions of this advertising as well, and how consumers feel about being advertised to in this way. Do they find it preferable to kind of existing forms of advertising?
Absolutely, yeah. And what we've actually found is whereby traditional attitudes towards things like TV or outdoor, the kind of linear channels that we're used to, are in decline and are really only breaking sort of 25% or so endorsement levels when people want to think of them as innovative. These in-content pieces are driving, upwards of 70% in terms of preference, perceived innovation and this kind of thing. So I think the market is really has an appetite for being delivered something in this kind of different and innovative way.
Absolutely. What I found quite interesting was the point you make about this not being, it's not an either or thing. It's not either in content or linear TV spots. It's both that really magnifies the performance. How important is that as a discovery?
Well, I think it's really important, but I think Tim, maybe you can give a light to how it's been landing with your clients, how it's played a role in shaping up wider media campaigns in your experience.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of solutions in content offer. So let's talk a little bit more about the linear side of it. I mean, the linear it's struggling a little bit. It's got a declining audience that's going on consistently, and there's a lot of things in the news about how people, particularly the youth today, are turning off linear, and therefore reach is going down. That unfortunately drives an increased exposure frequency to those people who are left watching it. So impressions are carrying on at the same level, but people are seeing more and more ads. And in fact, one of the top reasons people say that they dislike advertising, as they say, they're being bombarded by the same ad over and over again. So frequency is a huge issue. Now, if you can then look at extending or amplifying those TV linear spot campaigns into the content itself, where every single instance of an exposure is unique, there's no repetition of anything that happens. You can really extend the effect of your TV spot campaign, as well as delivering extra reach in it. So more and more advertisers are looking at ways in which they can amplify or extend not only the reach they get from their TV spot campaign specifically, but the outcomes of that. How can we actually invest ultimately to drive sales in new and unique ways by really complementing. It's not an either one or the other. It's a complementary addition to TV spot campaigns, which Sparsh mentioned. I mean, some of the key studies we did to start with was specifically looking at what is the effect of adding content advertising to TV spots. Some of the big advertisers we worked with at the time on these campaigns, that was a specific question. And we really proved the point that in-content does actually extend not only the reach of what you get from your TV spots, but the outcomes in terms of brand results.
I guess an important thing for advertisers is actually getting people to buy at the end of the day.
That's the goal.
Exactly. So what were the findings around the impact on purchase intent, I think is the way you describe it, of in-content advertising?
Well, we did two of the studies we did. We actually looked at the outcomes. Actually, what was the sales, both in spend and in consumption across brands. So purchase intent, yes, it's something we look at across all the campaigns, and in every single instance, purchase intent has gone up. I mean, Sparsh can talk about average, but I would say above averages in purchase intent. Two of the campaigns we actually measured post-campaign sales. Measured both as spend and as consumption, and in both those two instances there was a huge uplift in the higher end consumption and the higher end spend coming from the combination of TV spot advertising and in content when you compared that just to the TV spot activity on its own. So both purchase intent but actual consumption were driven extensively.
Yes.
And just to add to that, a little bit more flavor to that, to some of the stats there for what Tim mentioned, 56% of the sample expressed that they consumed these products after seeing the TV plus in content, as compared to 34% for those who saw TV only. And again, there was an 11% higher spend uplift on those who had seen both TV and the integrations rather than just the TV as well. And the way that was determined was we recontacted a really sizable part of our sample that made up the original sample that had seen the whole series of TV shows. We recontacted them after roughly 2 weeks of being exposed to this episode that they had seen, and then asked them about, did you go and purchase these products? How much did you spend? How much do you foresee spending? and that's how these results were derived and validated.
So I guess this research is not just about sort of proving that the value of in-content advertising within an advertising mix, but actually delivering insight that's going to help your clients, Mirriad's clients, actually implement this in the most effective way possible. Tim, or either of you, perhaps talk us through what insights there are that will help potential users of in-content advertising make sure it really hits the mark as they put it to use.
I might start on the top level on that list, Sparsh go into the detail, but I think that there's three key parts to the research in terms of what we're looking for. One is the results. I mean, does it drive outcomes? Does it drive purchase intent? Does it drive awareness? And that was the sort of first main question we're obviously getting from our clients is to, we need to know it works to reinvest. The second one is, well, you've proved it works. Now, what's the best optimum mix between, what frequency should I do? What's the budget levels I should use? What's a formats work? And that's where we did, as Sparsh mentioned, a lot of studies looking at the creative combinations of, what should I use, all signage? Should I use all product? What proportion of my budget should I take from TV? And it's a complicated thing, advertising. We did find that it's very difficult to pinpoint one aspect. So product and signage overall work pretty equally when you look at all the campaigns, but you take individual campaigns and some work better than others. And I think the other thing we touched on a little bit earlier is the consumer preference. I mean, we are in a business where we want to enhance the consumer experience rather than detract them. And there's a lot of apathy to advertising, and to have a format where 70 to 80% of people say they like it, and we are talking about an advertising format where normally in research, and I'm sure Sparsh will nod at this, most people are very happy to tell you how much they dislike advertising. And we have a situation here where the great majority say, I like this format. 7 times more people say they like it than a TV spot, for instance. So with all the sort of declining reach and the apathy to advertising, this is a superly important new opportunity for brands to engage people in a way that they like. Us as consumers, we like a format that is going to work better for us.
I mean, given the findings, Sparsh, I mean, you obviously spent many years looking at the advertising industry and what works and what perhaps doesn't, and how it's changing. Do you see this as being, kind of the format of the future, that more and more is going to go down this particular route?
Yeah, certainly I do, and that's kind of what we're trying to get at with the title as well, of placing the future. I think more and more kind of advertisers are looking to reach consumers in a way that consumers are not disturbed, don't feel intruded upon too much. And certainly, again, our findings reveal that the product integrations or the signage integrations that have been done in the least intrusive but still distinctive way, and it's a fine balance you have to reach, perform really strongly, and the metrics speak from themselves. What I would add from another kind of strategic dimension is what we're within right now is the time of the increasingly conscious consumer, right? People are very turned on and tuned into the idea of brands selling things to them, what a brand is communicating to them as a message, is it fitting in with their broader ideals, this kind of thing. Now, one aspect of a preference-driven choice that a consumer does have is the kind of content they choose to view, what they choose to support in terms of their paid subscriptions, these kind of things. Now, if advertisers are able to show that they're tuned into those preferences and actually they're appearing in the content that a consumer is engaged in and wants to consume, then they're naturally differentiating themselves out from the rest of the marketplace, from their own competitors, this kind of thing. The reason I bring this up is our findings from a wider media landscape kind of analysis tracking that we do of perceptions and media reactions that consumers have to different channels reveal that individuals are most likely to engage with and respond to brands that are meaningfully different in the marketplace, that drive some kind of meaning and positive association with themselves, but also do it in a different way. And it's not necessarily always the messaging that has to do that. It's even the format that you deliver the message through, which I feel that this research is really hitting the nail of. What we found here is that we found a format or a media channel effectively that is intrinsically meaningfully different because it's unique. It allows an advertiser to appear where they're not competing with anyone else. They have the full focus of the consumer. They don't have an ad break where there's 7 other brands that are trying to fight for that share of voice, all of these things. And if done well, it can build an affinity really strongly if it's within a scene with characters that you have invested emotionally in and this kind of thing as a consumer. So certainly it's this research, I would say, proves that it's here to stay. I think already has been achieved, but now it's all about let's fine tune it and make it even better to continue delivering in a bigger and bigger way in years to come.
And I assume as part of that fine tuning, you're going to build on the findings of this study, and there'll be further research down the line as you sort of keep understanding how the format is evolving.
Absolutely, and till date we're getting close to 25 individual research studies that have been done. There's ever more opportunity as advertisers get more and more interested in this field to kind of include it as a fundamental that if you're going to have one of these placements, because of the sensitivity of where it's appearing, a research element or a measurement element has to kind of go hand in hand with it. And actually, these measurements also empower advertisers to gain confidence in rolling this out further. So certainly that, and measuring more and more of those live campaigns as they go out in greater titles and mass reaching TV shows, perhaps films, music videos, all of these kind of platforms, they're all on offer for this kind of in-content advertising. So just looking to continue mapping the industry that way.
And Tim, I guess this kind of research actually helps from Mirriad's perspective to keep developing solutions that advertisers want and that are favoured by the consumer.
I mean, it is always a proof of the concept works. I mean, it is a relatively new format for a lot of marketeers. Just carrying on with what Sparsh was saying, I mean, what we're seeing now more and more is as people invest more and they start looking at this as part of their mainstream media plans, as opposed to proof of concept, perhaps for some of them. What they're looking to do is align a more always-on approach for their measurement as they would with TV spots. So to have continual campaigns, continual tracking, and more we're hearing outcomes in terms of what's it doing to my sales impact, as opposed to just a purchase intent. So I can see as the campaigns get bigger and they're scheduled continually with TV spot campaigns, we're going to be looking at people with clients looking for an always-on approach to tracking outcomes all the way through time for their campaigns.
And presumably this then in the future starts extending to other formats as well, this kind of research, not just TV spots but into sort of social channels as Mirriad evolves into those channels as well.
Yeah, I mean, we have done research together. We've done some campaigns on YouTube because we have a lot of music videos going through, which is different, and those are obviously not scheduled with TV spots. And there's a whole new opportunity in the influencer market where we've got campaigns coming up in that. So they will be looking less at an outcome in relation, well, they will also be potentially looking at outcomes in terms of what does it amplify my current activity, which is, it could be outdoor, it could be TV spots. So when we look at the future, we could be doing all forms of different measurements, not just of the amplification of in content in entertainment programs linked to TV spots, but what does it amplify all my other activity if I'm on music videos in YouTube, for instance? And what's the impact, not only the outcome just on that particular activity, but how does it work with the rest of my media mix? And that's where I think we'll be seeing ourselves going next.
No, it's absolutely fascinating. Thanks for taking the time to share the findings of the research today. The groundbreaking research, as you describe it, which it is, looking into groundbreaking technology. Thank you so much, and I'll make sure there's a link to the report which you can read in full on the article accompanying this video. Thank you very much, Sparsh and Tim.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you.